Us. Good to see you. It's been a few weeks. We've had a lot going on, including the Cyclone Alfred that did some pretty serious damage. But anyway, we're back. And today we just want to go over some ways for karate fighters who want to transition into the grapple range, but don't necessarily have the skills or the confidence. Okay, so you got to transition from the outside ranges to the inside ranges without getting whacked. And then when you're in there, you have to be able to control it so you know what you're doing. Okay, so I basically narrowed down the stand-up grappling range to 4 or 5 things. The first one is the underhook. You have to control with a good solid underhook. The second one is what we call the 2-on-1 or the Russian tie, and we'll demonstrate these for you today. And we'll probably do a series of videos over the next few weeks concentrating on one or the other of those. So you have the underhook, you have the Russian tie, you have the arm drag. Okay, the Russian tie is also called the 2-on-1. You have the arm drag, you have the collar tie, and the collar tie usually looks a lot easier than it really is. Yeah, would you say that?
Absolutely, yeah.
People think that they have a collar tie, but all they're doing is getting themselves in trouble, to be quite honest. A good solid wrestler's, a high-level wrestler collar tie, it's extremely difficult to get off, okay? And then the next thing that I think is really important for karate fighters to recognize is, even more perhaps than when you're in kumite, or at least with equal importance, is the head position. Because in wrestling, when you have that contact, if your head position is out of position, their head is driving you away from your power line. Okay, so we're going to look at some of these positions, and we'll look at ways to deal with them when they occur to you as well. Us Marco, Victor, us Sensei Mike, how are you? You guys in sunny Western Australia have had the best of it. We've been having cyclones over here. But anyway, how are you, Ryan? Good to see you, man, and appreciate you coming along. Ryan may very well have all the answers to everything we're doing today. But anyway, we're going to run through these fundamentals. So remember, the reason you see wrestlers in the Olympics having trained for so long is Rico Ciparelli once said to me that there's about 35,000 basic techniques in wrestling. So if you change the angle, the technique actually changes, unlike karate, where you could probably narrow things down to about 500 basics. In wrestling, you're talking about tens of thousands, which means for guys to get to that Olympic standard, they have to have been training from a very, very young age to accumulate the necessary. I just realized Mitch is way over there. To accumulate that necessary experience. Okay, so it's overwhelming when you think about it. So we need to narrow it down to a manageable range. And the 5 keys, at least, that I can see, which of course aren't going to turn you into Olympic wrestling champion. That's not our goal. Our goal is to understand the fundamentals of what we're doing so that if it occurs to us, we have at least a shape and a defensive understanding of what to do. Of course.
And it's like also said, isn't it, Xian, that he said you can't be ignorant of other martial arts and call yourself a martial artist.
That's right. If
you remind us of that a lot.
Yes, and I think it's really important. And I think you don't really deserve to be a black belt in anything unless you have a fundamental idea of what you can expect from other systems. It's insane to tout a black belt, which is a symbol of high level of achievement, but not even know the most fundamental thing of other systems, okay? And this is particularly true in the grappling arts because they're so confident with what they do. But they've just, like Mike Tyson says, everyone's got a plan till they get whacked in the head, And that's an old adage of military, an old military axiom too, that all plans fail on first contact. So that's really important. We keep that in mind too. Okay, so we're going to look at a couple of these fundamental wrestling concepts. And we don't want to lose sight of the fact that we're karate fighters as well. So this is why we need to be conscious of them. The best way to do that, first of all, is drill and understand the shapes and the fundamentals of these skills, and then apply them in a context where your partner isn't just wrestling, he's also punching and headbutting and biting and all those sort of things. Okay? So let's, about this distance is good. Okay, so the fundamental skills that we're talking about, first of all, is that dominant head position. And what that is, fundamentally, you can apply this to everything you do, including your stand-up karate, including your grappling on the ground, is my head is directly in line with his spine at all times. Okay? So if I have this fundamental head position, and notice my eyes are up, if I have this head position, I have dominance. Without even using hands or anything, if Mitch tries to force me, and I'm on my heels here, I'm just standing square, I'm not in a fighting stance. If I go the way Mitch is standing and he tries to push into me,
You're like a rock.
he's not going anywhere. On the other hand, if Mitch changes his head position so that now he has dominance and now he pushes, there's very little I can do to resist it. Okay, so the first thing we need to remember all the time is when we're in this dominant, in this inside range, this range 4, the best thing I can do pretty well all the time is get my dominant head. Okay, it doesn't matter how strong my underhooks are or anything. If I'm looking over there, that's where my energy is going. If I'm here and I'm looking at the camera and Mitch is driving in his dominant head, he has control. It doesn't matter. Okay, so it's really important that I recognize that. So whether I'm doing like an arm drag where he comes in to grab, I get this arm drag, my head is always aiming towards his spine. Okay, there's exceptions to every rule. Okay, with the collar tie here, he goes collar tie, I get that collar tie off, and I regain control by bringing my dominant head in to there. Okay, there are exceptions. For example, if I get control of his shoulder first, then I have this dominance. Okay, so the dominant head is the first thing we can do, and that's an easy one for karate fighters to work out, simply because we use that all the time, even when we're sparring. Right here now, my dominant head it should be in line. And if Mitch moves, I move. If he makes a small adjustment, I readjust so that my head is always on line with his. That's called dominant head. Now, if Mitch was to move off slightly to the side, and I don't adjust because I can still see him, so I think I have him in my sights, I'm really badly mistaken, because now his dominant head, which is an extension of his power chain down his spine, he has position. I don't. And in this circumstance, all he has to do is just drive in on me, and there's very little that I can do. Okay? So the first concept we need to understand is dominant head all the time. And we make these small adjustments. If Mitch moves, I adjust. And my head is 100% of the time zeroing in right on his spine. When he moves, I move. I make these small adjustments. And of course, you don't have to be frozen. That's setting yourself too stiff. So even when I'm moving around like this, boom, I'm constantly aware of my dominant head position. Okay? So that's the first point that we need to understand if you're going to transition from outside ranges, kick and punch range, into the grappling range, is you want to make sure you get your dominant head in position. And if nothing else, the dominant head can play a huge part in regaining some degree of control. If Mitch was to drive in on me and he's grappling, okay, if all I do is bring my head in so that now I have dominant head. You see that? My head is looking straight at his spine. Boom. That alone changes the complexion of everything that Mitch just did. Okay, but if he drives in and he has dominant head and I'm here, it doesn't matter. I'm trying to drive. Look, I'm trying to force myself in. There's nothing I can do. Okay, so here's a drill, a couple of drills, if I can think of them, that we want to do to develop the habit of maintaining good dominant head. It's probably a good idea that you do them with ear covers because you can bump your ears, but you can do it without that simply by being a little careful. So the drill is my hands are behind my back and we just come head here. Now we start off very slow. Mitch somehow gains head position, dominant head. See, there's his dominant head. Now I need to regain dominant head, and this is without all the underhooks and ties. All I'm going to do is drop my head and turn back in. So now and notice I'm not looking at the ground. Okay, watch when I turn back in. I turn and my eyes are horizontal. I'm looking in to his neck. So we're here, he gets dominance, boom. I can just start by turning my head there. He regains dominant head. Boom. Okay, I try to turn, but he doesn't let me turn. See, he moves around. So now what I'm going to do is drop down, use my legs, drop down and come in this way. Now Mitch can drop under and come in this way. See that? And gets his dominant head. I come in, turn there, he turns back in, boom, I come under, turn there, he comes under, turns there, maybe I'll go under, maybe he'll turn in, like that. Okay, they're the two first ways to help you regain dominant head. The next way is a shoulder shrug. So I'm here like this, he has dominant head, watch my shoulder. I simply shrug the shoulder, the head away, and come in. So this time, watch Mitch's shoulder. He pushes my head away with his shoulder. Push, in, there, boom, in, turn, in, shoulder, in, turn, in, under, boom, turn in, shoulder push, in, like that. Now you can do, that was a good one.
Sorry.
Now you can do all that with your hands behind your back. So obviously you're not going to headbutt each other. Mind you, it's good training for headbutts too, because for the headbutt to work, he needs space. Remember, range 4 is inside grappling. Range 3 is a headbutt range. So a kick range is about less than a meter. So I can kick there. The punch range is less than 1 footstep further in. Okay, a headbutt elbow range is there. So another footstep in. So the headbutt range needs space for it to work. The inside grappling range is here. So now if Mitch has dominant head and I try to headbutt him, I've got to withdraw to get my head power, but he just drives his dominant head in, so my headbutt goes. Okay, if I pull back to headbutt, he drives his head right into my neck there, boom, and now I have no headbutt. If I want to create space to headbutt, that drive keeps in. And this is another reason why when you take someone's back, for example, in a street fight, you don't want to be here looking for chokes and everything, because he's just going to headbutt your back. Bang. Headbutts, the same distance as elbows, yes. So if I have space, bang, I'm going to hit. So it means I'm constantly pressing my head in like that, so that we have constant contact between the heads. And that's the first level of what we'll do over the next few weeks, that you can practice that even when you're doing your kumite in the dojo, is try to feel as though you're looking at your partner like the crosshairs in a gun sight constantly. And if there's, if you have a deer in the gun sight and he moves slightly off, you're not going to leave the gun there and just watch the deer. You're going to follow that deer, and you're just going to kiss like you have a laser beam right on your opponent's, right between their eyes, and you constantly keep that in. And in wrestling, in grappling, the stand-up, it's even more important, because if you lose that dominant head, it doesn't matter where your hands are. It's a really difficult thing to regain control. Any comments?
Absolutely. And I think the drill that you just showed, Xian's a really effective drill, and it's worth practicing, like you said, a lot. But don't go crazy hard, because you can. Some people are really sensitive in the skull and the head. I've noticed over the years as well. So take it easy as when you first start doing it.
Take it easy to start with, and gradually, even when you really do go hard, you get better at it, so you don't pull the head away. So there's not a lot of you stay contact, not a lot of impact. So that allows you to practice it with a very high degree of sensitivity and reality. The reason you put your hands behind your head, behind your back, is so that you learn to use your spine and your head as a fifth limb. Okay, so we have, in the syllabus that I've just been working on, our karate syllabus, we describe 9 weapons. We have the 2 feet and the 2 knees, that's 4. We have the 2 hands and the 2 elbows, that's 8, plus the head. The head is an extra limb. It's a fifth limb. And nowhere is it more apparent than when you're grappling, because you can be a really, really highly trained grappler. If you have no idea of the dominant head position, a white belt can outmaneuver you simply by positioning their head. Okay, let's see what some of the comments are. Always wondered, how did we meet and become friends? How did that happen?
No, not you and I. I think you might have been talking about Rico Ciparelli at that time when you said that.
Oh, are you talking about Mitch and me, Ryan, or are you talking about someone else, like Rico Ciparelli, things like that? Us, Nicholas? Us, yeah, you and Mitch. I thought so. He's talking about us. Yeah.
Oh, I was doing Kyokushin with Sensei Kevin Vivas on the Gold Coast, and Xian would go up to the dojo, his hangar dojo at the time, every 3 months to do gradings. And so, over the years doing gradings, and then you had all the uchideshi upstairs, all these killers upstairs with their shaven heads would come down and just go pop, 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 and just towel us up. And I'm thinking,
we had a dormitory.
How do you get that good? And then I learned about it, and I came and I inquired with Xian about living in there. And from when I was maybe 18, 19.
Yeah, so he's a teenager.
Yeah.
And he's 22 now, so it's been 3 years.
Good 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, that was back in the 90s, early 90s?
No, that would have been 90s.
Late 90s.
Yeah, I would have. 97, I moved in, but I met you at probably 94, 93. 94.
So we go back to the old Kyokushin days where Mitch was just still a white belt, even training with Kev Vivas, and I probably would have graded you.
You've done all my gradings.
I did all his gradings over the years because Sensei Kev's dojo was part of our group. And that's how and then he came in and became an uchideshi. And then Mitch went away to do his athletic development and strength and conditioning training. So he spent many years studying at tertiary level to get his qualifications for that. And then we somehow found each other.
I was coaching a football team, and I called you because they wanted tackling work. They wanted someone that knew wrestling for tackling to improve the player's defense and ground contact with in defensive situations. So I said, I know the person. And I called up Xian and I said, hey, come and help us with this. And he did. And that was one of the many roles you've had in high-level sport in terms of AFL, rugby league, rugby union, and so on. You've gone on and done a lot there. And we did that for a few years together. And then always stayed in contact. And then I thought, I've got to learn this grappling stuff and everything as well.
Yeah, and I used to grapple with some guys in my garage before I really had a school to go to.
Yeah.
And Mitch used to come along to that. Mitch and my nephew, my sister's son, are good mates.
Christian, yeah.
In fact, Christian and Mitch fought off in the Queensland Kyokushin final one year, and I was the referee. So naturally, Christian won.
He won because he's better. He won because he's better.
Okay, so there you go. Us, Portans, greetings from India. Us, Roland, nice to see you, man. How you been? Us, Anth, thanks for everything you do. Anthony Zamadia is really very active in our group. Grace, I was always just teaching this about head position recently. I love the metaphor of imagine two cars getting into an accident and one T-bones the other. Which car will take more damage? Yeah, there you go. That's a perfect example of it. So if you can imagine two forces coming together, if one has the force line in alignment and the other one doesn't, it's just going to get knocked out of the way. That's a good metaphor there, right? Which car would be able to move the other car in that T shape? Yes, exactly. So if one car is like this and the other one is like that, you know which car is going to be dominant. That's good. And people use that T-bone theory. Police use it all the time to stop stolen cars. Could you give a little more insight on judo and grappling overall correlating to Kyokushin? Chael Sonnen Jindabad. Sure. Well, look, Solsai said you cannot be ignorant of the fundamentals of any art. And he grew up in an era of judo and karate. Remember that one of his best friends was Kimura Masuhiko, the one that the Kimura lock in BJJ is named after. He and Solsai used to travel together around Japan teaching and demonstrating. So they had a very close bond. And when Solsai actually was introduced to judo by Kimura sensei, who directed him to the Sone Dojo, which was a dojo in Japan that was particularly famous for its groundwork. And keep in mind, this is back in the 50s. And pre-Olympic judo is very different to post-Olympic judo. Pre-Olympic judo was more akin to BJJ today, more akin to what they call Kosen judo. Kosen judo is an area of judo. Ko means high schools, Koko means high schools, and Sen means Senmon universities, or if you like, technical colleges, engineering colleges, things like that. And they had a network of judo schools that kept going with the pre-Olympic rules. So they developed a pretty solid grappling game. Kimura Masahiko was actually part of that group all the way to the end as well. So anyway, the difference is the ranges. Remember, my theory is that there's only ever one martial art. And originally, if you had a bunch of cavemen deciding who's going to be dominant, well, they would use everything. And then one day, somewhere, someone goes, well, actually, I prefer swords. Someone else says, yeah, but I like the stick. Someone else says, yeah, I like bare. I like hitting with my fists. And someone else says, well, I'm a kicker. And then someone else, yeah, but I'm going to grab and throw. And so you have that one system as a result of individual preferences splits up into a whole range of different concepts, and you train according to the set of rules that you want to work with, okay? So if you're fighting Kyokushin, you train Kyokushin rules. It's that simple. If you're an Olympic wrestler, you're going to be the best at using those rules, okay? No one in Olympic wrestling cares if you can knock out a bull. No one in Kyokushin cares if you can suplex someone, because they're not in the rule set that competition allows. So the main thing there is that judo grew out of Aiki Jiu-Jitsu, which basically included the strikes and the grabs and everything, as well as the throws and takedowns. But it refined it once again. It chose the rule set to remove those. Even though in judo, they do practice weapons, defense against weapons, strikes. They use strikes in their kata and things like that. But the judo rules don't allow it. Okay, so grappling in general is an overall term to describe grabbing, throwing, locking, controlling, pressing on the ground, and so on. Judo is just one area of that where they train with a gi, they grab the gi. The rules even stipulate ways you can and can't grab and so on. So anyway, that's fundamentally the difference. Whereas karate stays on the outside ranges, the kick range, the punch range, the headbutt elbow range. And it once again depends on the rules of karate. It makes a difference. Okay, good to see you guys. Thanks for coming along, Mitch.
Awesome. Thank you,
Awesome.
Sean. Appreciate it.
It's always great. I train with Mitch on Wednesdays. This is our third time we get together for training. See you next week. We're going to continue on over the next few weeks with the fundamental keys to make sure that you have at least a clearer picture of what to expect in the grappling realm. Thanks.